Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk more about energy in ecosystems, food chains and food webs, but more specifically about the energy pyramid. Now just a little bit of a review from part 1 of these notes is food chains and food webs. Here in this example we talked about this being a food web, which is simply a combination of several food chains. Okay, so for example, I've got this food chain right here that starts with these leaves, starts with the producer, and then I've got the butterfly being the primary consumer and the bird being the secondary consumer. We know that the butterfly eats the leaves because that arrow is going from the leaves to the butterfly. All of the energy in those leaves goes to the butterfly whenever that butterfly eats it. And then all of the energy in the butterfly goes to the bird when that bird eats that butterfly. Okay, it's a transfer of energy. So I've got that food chain, and then down here separate I've got the algae and the energy in the algae going to the fish, and then the energy in the fish going to the alligator. So I've got that separate food chain down there. But when these food chains start to cross, so for example, the alligator eating the bird and the energy in the bird going to the alligator, it becomes no longer a food chain, but now a food web. So I've got several overlapping food chains. Okay, and it's important to remember that food chains are always overlapping. Okay, they're never just by themselves. They're always overlapping and have interactions between them. All right, very good. So now let's talk a little bit about the energy pyramid. Okay, now so here is an energy pyramid. Okay, I've got two different examples here, and the energy pyramid shows us the different amounts of energy at the different levels, the different amounts of energy at the producer level versus the primary consumer level versus the secondary consumer level versus the tertiary consumer level. Okay, and it's drawn in the pyramid to symbolize the amount of energy. So down here, okay, in this energy pyramid, the bottom level, which is the producer level, which are the plants, okay, is the biggest part of the pyramid. It's the base. Okay, it's the base, it's the biggest part because this is where the most energy is. There are more producers on this planet than anything else. There are more plants on this planet than there are animals or anything else. Therefore, the more plants, the more energy. Okay, the more organisms, the more energy. So this level, okay, in our food pyramid is by far the greatest amount of energy. Okay. Now, as we go up, we go to the next level. So we go to our primary consumer level, our herbivores. Now, you'll notice that this level is smaller than the bottom level. Okay. The second level up is smaller. Why is it smaller? Because there is less energy. Also because there are fewer organisms. Okay. There are fewer organisms in the primary consumer level than there are the producer level. And then as we continue up to the secondary consumer level, it's even smaller because it has fewer organisms, less energy. And then we get to the top level, tertiary consumers, it's the smallest, the fewest number of organisms, the least amount of energy. So as we go up the energy pyramid, okay, the levels get from big to smaller to smaller to smallest because that symbolizes the amount of organisms at each level and the amount of energy at each level. So if I ask you which level has the greatest amount of energy, okay, the producer level, the bottom level, it's the biggest, it has the greatest number of organisms, greatest amount of energy. Which level has the least amount of energy? The tertiary or top level consumer level. Okay, so we have these two different levels, and you see just this other example, which is the same thing, but down here we have our producers, our plants, then we have our herbivores, our primary consumers, and then our tertiary consumers are our top level consumers, and we just skipped the secondary consumer at this point, so we only had 3 in this line. Now, only 10% of the energy gets passed on from one level to the next. So we got all this energy down here in this producer level. Only 10% of it is going to get passed on to the primary consumer level. Only 10%. That's a pretty small amount. Okay, pretty small amount. Where does the other 90% go if it doesn't get passed on? Well, it just escapes into the environment. Sweat, perspiration, heat, waste, okay, all of those things, that's where the other energy goes. So it's kind of thinking when you eat a meal, okay, when you go and you eat your pizza and you eat your chocolate milk and your hamburger, whatever, you eat a meal, of the 100% of energy that's essentially in that meal, you only take away 10% of it. So where does the other 90% of that meal, the energy in that meal, go? Well, it goes into body heat, which you vent into the environment. It goes into waste, which you vent into the toilet. Okay? It goes to other places. But you are only used for your breathing and your movement and your thinking and your talking. You only use 10% of that energy. Okay? Now, if something came along and ate you, that means only 10% of the energy in you would go on to that next organism. So when you eat, or when an animal eats these herbivores, or excuse me, these herbivores, these producers, these autotrophs down here, only 10% goes to their functioning. And the rest gets wasted in the environment. So as you go up, you continually lose more and more energy. Okay, less and less gets passed up through the process of the energy pyramid. So again, the energy pyramid is simply showing us the amount of energy at each level, and then only 10%, oops, messed it up there, only 10% of the energy, okay, 10% goes from one level to the next level to the next level. So each level, 90% of energy that's in that food is getting essentially wasted, lost in the environment. All right, so hopefully this helps you understand the energy pyramid a little bit better. Stay tuned for part 3 of these notes.